Happy Veterans Day, everyone, to all my fellow veterans. Thank you for your service. This is a special day and an honor for me to bring you today's Cocktails with Cav Veterans Day special. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest, my good friend, incredible Vietnam veteran and author, Jerry Glazer. And today is the launch of his fantastic novel, Vietnam Uncensored, 365 Days in a Nightmare. Today's show is going to be a very special occasion because the launch proceeds of the book will all go to the Kaufman Fund, an excellent veterans organization that's been around for over 30 years, helping veterans and aiding their families. So by all means, please buy the book. The link of the Amazon book sales page will be in the description. And I've got mine. Let's go help our fellow veterans and plus get an incredibly fantastic novel in the process. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get on with it. Our Veterans Day special. Please help me welcome to the stage U.S. Army Special Ops, Vietnam veteran, and incredible author, Jerry Glazer. Oh, Jerry, my friend, I am so happy to have you back on the Cocktails with Cav show. It's been a long time, my brother. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm hanging in. As a matter of fact, at the end of the week, I'm going down to the VA for my annual checkup so I can get my medication.
There you go. Well, I tell you what, this is a special Veterans Day. I'm so excited. Your book is being launched today. And of course, we're talking about Vietnam Uncensored, 365 Days in a Nightmare. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a big day. Big day for Jerry, but big day for this book, but also just a big day for veterans. And Jerry, for the ladies and gentlemen in the audience that haven't gotten a chance to know you yet, man, please, by all means, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in the conflict and what it all means for Veterans Day today as your book launches, your long-anticipated book launches.
Right. Well, I should first start that, of course, the book launches on November 11th, Veterans Day, and I would appreciate that all people listening stand with me to make the launch a success, because all the net proceeds will be donated to the Kaufman Fund, a charity that helps veterans in need. So not only will they get a great read, a page turner, I'm going to tell you it's a page turner, I've been told, but they'll also be contributing to a worthy cause. So that's part of why what we're doing. We're doing it on Veterans Day because we're turning over all the net proceeds we've already committed to the Kaufman Fund. So whatever money we get, we're going to give it to him. And I said to him, and just to give you the type of people they are, I said, I don't know how many books we're going to sell. I might sell only 4 books to my 2 brothers and my cousin. So he says to me, whatever it is, it's more than we have now.
Well, I'll tell you, the Kaufman Fund is definitely a great organization.
Yeah,
does a lot of great work.
He didn't care. He said, no, I appreciate the offer. Thank you very much, Jerry, and we'll see. But meanwhile, they're also excited.
That's it. Over 30 years of helping veterans and their families, man. It's a great organization. So great cause.
Both he and his brother are veterans, Vietnam veterans, as a matter of fact.
And I'll tell you, Jerry, that's one of the things that intrigued me, and for those who don't know, Jerry was an early guest on the Cocktails with Cav show, and just in anticipation of this great novel that's coming out, Vietnam Uncensored.
Memoir.
Memoir, yes, sir. But, as a veteran, a fellow veteran, I was intrigued by the work, and one of the reasons, of course, is the Vietnam era is quickly fading in the social consciousness, and of course we have a lot of decades of war that have occurred since Vietnam, with young men and women today still out overseas and in places they probably have no business being. But it's just, the book really hits home. And so, Jerry, if you could, man, give everybody a little of your background of how what you did in Vietnam, and how you forged that bond that comes with combat, and what we're getting into in your novel.
I was exempt from the draft because I was in university at the time. I graduated university, and I believed when the government was saying they're going to end the war any day. The war is coming to an end. The concept was, and I believed it, was that a country 2/3 the size of California, no army, Navy, or Air Force to speak of, right, could stand up against the military might of the largest nation in the world, the most powerful nation in the world. This was the mentality of our politicians. And that didn't start the war, but that fomented the war, that carried the war, because there wasn't one president that did not believe that we would win in another day. What they did not understand was that the Vietnamese had been fighting for their self-determination for 1,000 years. 1,000 years. They had built underground cities. They had built tunnel networks. They were used to jungle warfare. They were, at the time the Americans came, they were colonized by the French. The French ruled Indochina. Indochina was, after World War II, France lost the war to Germany, right? They lost the war. The Japanese came in, and the Japanese came in to take over Vietnam, to take over Indochina. Indochina later was taken over by the Americans, and it was split into, this is how big it was: Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. That's the three countries that it became. When the French pulled out, they came to the Americans. And so the concept was, in the American mind, communism. So that if Vietnam fell to the because Ho Chi Minh was a communist, and he had become a communist by fighting in China, the rebels in China, like with the Mao Zedong. He became a rebel there, and he came back to Vietnam after to help defeat the French. Now they defeated the French. No, they helped the Americans during World War II. They were spotters. They were logistical to help them through the jungle. They were American allies, and they expected when the war was over that they would be given back their country independence. They can have freedom. And Ho Chi Minh believed in the Declaration of Independence. He could quote the Declaration of Independence from heart. He believed that he was fighting for his liberty just the way the Americans fought for their liberty. But he did not understand that America would never turn over anything to a communist. Arbeit the fact that he was an ally, arbeit the fact that he helped save American lives, they didn't care.
You'd think Dien Bien Phu, with the French, would have taught a few people a lesson, especially the operations they mounted. These guys were fighting.
So the French took it over. Ho Chi Minh went to war with the French, and he defeated them. Dien Bien Phu. They wiped them out. So now the French left, and they left it wide open to the United States. Kennedy was president. Kennedy moved in with advisors, and then when Kennedy wrote a book, Profiles in Courage. That book was a bestseller. It profiled Americans who put everything on the line for liberty. Right? So Profiles in Courage. So they stood up against the status quo. Didn't matter. And you could start with Nathan Hale, who was an American spy for England. and against England, and they caught him and they hung him. And his words are, "I regret I have but one life to give for my country." He didn't mind dying, because he was dying for this cause. And that's profiles in courage. So Ho Chi Minh was this person. He wasn't an American, but he stood up. Look what he was standing up to, and he didn't care. And so he told, when the war escalated, Kennedy had second thoughts about Vietnam after he had exhausted. What are we doing? The guy earned the right. It doesn't matter that he's a communist. He's a human being. He earned the right to this. He fought for this country. He earns the right. And he was assassinated before he could act on that thought. Right. Johnson came in, and Johnson came in with McNamara. McNamara was a hawk, and he was the advisor. He was the serpent in the president's ear. And he escalated. That war escalated as soon as Johnson took over. As soon as Johnson took over, that war went from zero to this. So what Johnson did is they initiated the draft, but they didn't have enough. After they went in 65, 66, 60, 65. By 66, they were running out of men. Why? Because the tour of duty by Congress was 1 year. So after 1 year, people were leaving. The death rates were incredible. I mean, they were killing us left, right, and center. We weren't. America was not geared up to fight in a tropical war, in a tropical setting.
Right.
It's 110 degrees in the shade, and there's no shade, and it's jungle diseases and vermin and rains, monsoon rains. America didn't have no way to fight that war. The rifles were jamming. The boots were, the clothing was rotting away. It was insanity. And so they never anticipated any of that. So by 66, Westmoreland went to the administration and said, "Hey, you better send us more men, because we're going to lose this thing. We're losing." So they went ahead and they couldn't draft anybody anymore. They had drafted everyone that they could draft out of high school, right? They didn't go to college, didn't have college education. And they didn't want to take the college guys that were in college. They didn't want to take students. There would be a riot. They figured that the nation would go crazy. So they went back to all the people that they rejected for mental defect, for stupidity, for low IQ, for infirmities. They had flat feet, or they had twitches, whatever. And they went back and they inducted 360,000 of these guys that they formerly rejected.
Right.
And guess where they all went?
Absolutely, right. Well, and I'll tell you, Jerry, that's what fascinates me about, when we talk about your book and the way it's arranged. Mm-hmm. And I'd like for you to talk about that a second, just, before we get too deep into your service, just the way that your novels arranged, your memoirs arranged, because okay. I think your historical perspective's kind of crucial to it,
Right. The book is my personal. When I first wrote the book, I wrote it historical perspective and my story in the same frame. So I would have a chapter, and I would be discussing my life, and I would be putting in what was happening. One editor that began reading through it said to me that you can't do that, because the book is not a history book. The book is it's a memoir. Tell about what happened to you. If you want to put the history in, put the history in the back. Put it like at the end of a chapter, so that it doesn't take away from your story. So the story is primary, and then comes the history. So I have a chapter of, let's say, when I first went into the Army. I have a chapter when I was in basic training. I have a chapter when I went to Vietnam. And in those chapters, behind every chapter, is a piece of history. A piece of history that was pertinent to that time of my service. So here I am in Vietnam, and we're going to X place. There's history going on in the United States or in Vietnam that pertains to that, in illuminating to the reader that here is the reason we were losing. Here is the reason we were dying. It wasn't the men on the ground. We never lost the battle. We lost the war, but we never lost the battle. We died in extraordinary numbers. We were injured more than almost as more per capita than any other war. More bombs were dropped on Vietnam during the Vietnam War than all of Europe and the World War II. You have a country 2/3 the size of the United States, 2/3 the size of California. More bombs dropped on that country than anywhere else in the world in World War II.
And it is fascinating, and like you said, that juxtaposition.
Can you imagine?
Sure.
So those
nothing happens in a vacuum, right?
When those 360,000 guys went, you know what they were called? This is true. McNamara's morons.
Right, right.
It was Project 100,000, McNamara's morons. Now, no one knew. The guy, boots on the ground, we didn't know any of this. The government never told anybody what they were doing. This all came out in the Pentagon Papers, right? I'm researching this book. When I'm writing this book, and now I'm researching history, because I didn't know the true history. I knew what happened to me. I knew the story of our battles, of our unit, of what went on. I did not know the duplicity, the lies, the propaganda, the cheating, the excuse my language, the motherfuckers, what they did. They should have been prosecuted as criminals, what they did. It was unjust. There was no reason for that war. It was purposeless and it was useless. The Marines, 1st Cav, 2nd Cav, 63rd, Airborne, 5th Army, 1st Army, every one of those guys put their lives on the line. They were all heroes and patriots doing what they were supposed to do. But the politicians weren't looking out for our welfare. They were just throwing meat. They were just throwing meat into the fire. Henry Kissinger, when Nixon won the election, Henry Kissinger made this comment: military men are dumb, stupid animals, right? Dumb, stupid animals, only to be used to conduct foreign policy.
Yeah.
You're taking all these lives. 2.5 million men passed through those doors. 2.5 million Americans went through the portals of Vietnam. More than 58,000 died. More than 150,000 were wounded. 300,000 suffered the effects of Agent Orange. 22,000 committed suicide. You're telling me we were dumb, stupid animals? That's his comment. I live 1,000 years, George. If I live 1,000 years, I won't forgive them. 1,000, I won't forgive them.
And that's understandable. And I'll tell you, one of the things, that fascinates me about your memoir, and is not only, like we mentioned, that juxtaposition between what was happening on the ground to you and your personal experience, and then the history, because nothing happens in that vacuum, right? And so things are going on, and young men and women are getting thrown to the wolves, and that's what I mentioned earlier. Is I feel, as the Vietnam era fades from the social consciousness here in America, it's very applicable to today as well, and that's why I was so excited to have your book being launched on Veterans Day. So. Because there's a group of young men and women now in America, and I talk to my children about this. They're literally they're in their 20s, and it's sort of similar to the Vietnam era. They know nothing but America at war in some foreign theater, undeclared, albeit,
But nothing America did before or after had the impact that Vietnam, remember, ran for over 11 years. You have to think about that for a second. It had 2.5 million men participate. It changed the face of America forever. It brought out all the activists. When the veterans came back, you had blacks, American Indians, minority groups all came out. These veterans stood up. They didn't care anymore. They could care less about anything. This activism and this defiance, or I would say, if anything the Vietnam War did, it put the government for the first time in the life of America under total speculation. People no longer trusted the government.
Right.
Because they lied consistently to run that war. They committed stupid things that caused lives of American boys. You know, I mentioned this before, that there are a couple sites on the platforms that give credit to veterans who died with acts of valor, you know? Or they just mentioned that he died on this day. And you look at the pictures, and sometimes we go into Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, and you see some of these posts of these boys who were there. And my God, George, they were 19, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. You remember when you were 21?
Right.
Beautiful American boys. You look at them, they take off their shirts. They're skinny guys. This one won a Medal of Valor or a Congressional Medal of Honor. He's nothing. He's skin and bones. There's a picture of a kid. Look at this kid.
Yeah, just kids, right?
The kid. And this kid could, and as far as I'm concerned, everyone deserves a Medal of Valor. Just because someone was there at a point in time where he went out and saved somebody and he got the credit for it. There were plenty of guys that saved people, and they all died for it, and they didn't get the recognition. They got a Purple Heart. I mean, there's one thing I can tell you. I saw acts of courage by certain individuals that do not seem possible. Do not seem humanly possible. Even in my own crew, I saw these guys do things that I pointed out in the book. It had to be magic. It made no sense what they could do. It made no sense that one guy had a sniper rifle and everything he aimed, he hit. There's no such thing he ever missed anything. I don't care what gun he was, what rifle or handgun he was using. The man had perfect aim. Perfect aim. He didn't. You see him looking through a scope. Boom. Wherever we were running, we were being pursued. I made a mistake, and we're being pursued. And we're being pursued for, I think, 2 days, right? And there's no place to hide. There's no place to go. I mean, there's a larger force pursuing us. It's not as if there's 10 guys pursuing us. There was like 200 guys pursuing us. So there's no way we're going to outrun them or outflank them. We had to get. And my guy looks out. He says, "Look over there." It's like dawn. I look out. What? That. I said, "What? Where?" "That there." I said, "Where?" I take out the binoculars. "Show me." I put on the binoculars. I'm looking. I don't see nothing. Nothing. He points my binoculars. "See there? You see that sliver of gray?" "Yeah, I see that sliver." And I needed the binoculars to see it. I needed not that I, right? And he had he didn't wear glasses. He didn't have binoculars. He saw this. He saw this. We're running, and he saw this. I said to him, "You know what that is?" I said, "Yeah, that's a rock face. And where there's a rock face, there's high ground." And that's what saved us.
Wow.
But how did he see that? I'm thinking to this day, how did he see that? How could he see that a mile away? Or how far was it? A sliver of rock that looked no more than the side of your hand?
Well, and I think in general, in combat, and I think, Jerry, you could probably attest more than most that, there's a certain amount of providence involved in combat. It's not the bullet with your name on it that you're worried about. It's the one that says "to whom it may concern," right?
all I could say is that I didn't believe in luck, and I didn't believe in prayer, because nothing ever worked there. And the one thing I came to believe in was that death does not refuse anyone. Death does not, that came to me one day, death does not discriminate. Black, green, blue, purple, stupid, smart, private, general, corporal, captain, all fell prey to death's hand. They all entered eternity together. That's one thing I can tell you. You could be Christian, you could be Jewish, you could be Muslim, I don't care what you were. You could be Baptist, you could be white, you could be black. You were all accepted into the kingdom of death. Everyone was. You may not be accepted in the high society in Florida. You may not be accepted into the Marines. You may not be accepted, but you were accepted into the kingdom of death. Everyone was. And you didn't need to pray. You didn't need anything. Gladly accept you. You want? Come on in. Anytime. Like the guy who jumped out of a helicopter. He went right there.
And do you think and that once you have that kind of commonality, right? Everybody's green, like we used to say, right? In the service, right? Do you find that contributes to the type of bond that occurs between people in combat? You know, because it's different than in friendships in civilian life.
It's much different. It translates into civilian life. I think it translates into civilian life that you are separate and apart. Unless you can find another brotherhood. If you don't find another brotherhood, you can't be part of anything. That's what I find. I can't be part of any. I'm not I don't join stuff. I'm not a member of anything. I don't play sports. I don't play cards. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm not one of the guys. Unless I can find a brotherhood that would think similar to me, but nobody thinks similar to me unless my buddies are all gone. They understood. And they were no different. We were all loners. We're all loners, but together we were a group. And that's how that formed after Vietnam as well. We were all loners. We went our separate ways. But if one of my buddies was in jail, I flew halfway across the country to go to him and get him out. I mean, it didn't matter. I didn't have the money. I had to borrow the money to do it. But that's what you did. If when my buddy got sick and he was on his last legs, I left my family, left my business. I went straight to be at his side. Because I remember, that's the brotherhood. Now, I can't say I do that for many people outside of that. Now, I'm not saying there aren't people who do that. There are. I mean, you do that for your family. I mean, right. You have your wife, you have your kids. That's who your mother, your father, your siblings. That's who you do it for. But you don't do it for people that come from a different world. You don't have people that live halfway across the world. You don't get on a plane, leave everything, and spend $2,000 whatever you need to do to go there. No one is going to let you do it. But no one would know. My wife, who does well on her own, would never argue with me if I went to see a brother. Where you going? He's sick. Oh, go ahead. If I want to buy a suit, you don't need another suit. It's too expensive. But she understood that has to be done. There's no way you can stop me from doing it.
That's it. Well, Jerry, as we're here on Veterans Day with the release of your great memoir, if you could look, you know, to kind of wrap things up, to tell everybody, kind of give them a brief overview of your service that's kind of depicted in your novel. Right. As well as what you think it means.
Okay, well,
to veterans today. Okay, and especially our young men and women that are dealing with things.
Well, I became the leader because of my training and my education. I became the leader of a special ops group, and who, by a strange set of coincidences, went to work for a general. And that general had his own agenda. He was a colonel when I met him, a full bird. And by what I did for him, he became a general. So I was supposed to go to the Pentagon with him after my service, but I was injured, so I never could go. He wanted me anyway. I decided against it. I said I wasn't going to go back into the service. I never was a leader. I don't think I was anyone thought about anything about except getting an education, getting a job, and getting a life. I was pulled in by the draft. I went into the service, and I got pulled into special training by a strange set of circumstances. It's in the book. And when I got to Vietnam, this general picked me up. And he picked me up, and as he picked me up, he understood my value, he understood what I could do, and he counted on me and he formed his own unit, his own special ops unit for him. And he operated for his buddies in the Pentagon. They had things that they wanted done, and he would do it for them. And so my unit, while we were in the Vietnam War, we were not part of anything, not part of any bigger unit like the 82nd Airborne, the 1st Cavalry. These guys were all one. We weren't one. We worked for him. And wherever he told us to go, we went. And I'm not going to say everything he did was honorable, but everything he did, we accomplished. And everything we did had an existential threat from the beginning to the end. So we woke up every day in trauma, and we went to sleep every day in trauma. And no matter what happened there, even if we did nothing, it was traumatic. There was nothing that ever happened there that you can. It was a place where the abnormal becomes normal. There's things that happen there that you cannot accept. It's going to happen. What are you going to do about it? There's nothing you can do. You're going to get a skin disease. You're going to get VD. You're going to get all these things that are going to happen. Here, you don't think twice about it. You think about it. Oh my God. Oh, it is what it is. Guy walked out of a helicopter. Well, who would do that? I mean, what's going on there? And the pity of it all, you don't see it coming. But you're in it. You're in the fishbowl. You are part of that world. You're swimming around with the fish. You don't see the outside world affecting that bowl. You don't see that someone is heating up that water or making it colder. You don't see them adding the food. You're in the fishbowl, so you don't see that you are slip sliding into insanity. You are. There's no way you can't. I mean, reach into a helicopter to get someone's dog tags, and you're reaching into his body. Your hand goes inside his body. You do that, and then you come out. No matter how much you've seen, no matter what you've done, the idea of it, things that you see beyond anything that you could ever imagine. So I always say, you want to write a war story, and you want to put anything in it you want. You put anything in it you want. You write the war story. Write the worst war story you could, the worst horror, the worst tragedy, the worst shit that happened. You write it, and I'll believe it. Because nothing can compare to what the real thing was. There was nothing. I think back, wait a minute, did I do that? Did I wind up? It doesn't seem possible. Nothing seems, and everyone was as crazy as me or crazier. From the privates to the generals, there was nobody that was sane there. Nobody that was sane. I don't care.
That's it. And having been through, one could definitely argue the worst of the worst. For the human mind to take in and survive through, and not only that, come back home.
I don't speak for others, because everybody's life is different and everybody interprets things differently. I explain in the memoir. I explain my feelings and what I was thinking. I can remember what I was thinking, and that's what I write about. I don't write about the next guy, about what he was thinking. I write about what I was thinking. I bring in the activity and what we were doing, and I ask questions. How did you do that? I'll ask the question. And a guy performs a phenomenal act of heroism, and you say to him, "I don't understand. How did you do that?" "What do you mean? I just did it." The answer. What do you mean? I just did it? Where was the motivation? Why did he do it? Why did he risk everything for that? I don't get it. And you know what? And that was basically, when you talk about heroes don't think they're heroes. You see a guy, he gets a Congressional Medal of Honor. He doesn't. You shouldn't have given it to me. You should have given it to the rest of the guys who died there. He doesn't think he deserves it. He went ahead and he operated on the extreme hazardous condition. He saved 3 people by bringing them back to safety. He was shot twice doing it, and he gets a Congressional Medal of Honor. But what about all those other guys that were doing the same thing at the same time that they wouldn't get noticed? Or the other guys that got shot? Every one of those guys would have done the same thing.
Right. Well, do you have any advice? Do you have any advice for the younger generation? Because of course our society now is, it's replete with a bunch of young men and women that have their own PTSD issues from places around the world the last couple of decades.
I have my own problems, but I can only say that I believe that every act of kindness, no matter how small, right, is appreciated. And you never know what that act of kindness will bring. It's like throwing a pebble into a calm lake. It creates concentric circles. And the concentric circles that this little pebble, this stone creates, will go out till eternity, till the end of the lake. It doesn't stop. It diminishes, it goes. So you never know an act of kindness, what it will do. If I pass a guy on the street and he has his hand out, I give something. Well, he's going to buy a drink. I said, so let him buy a drink. It's not on me what he buys with the money. He wants a drink, let him buy a drink. Who am I to say he shouldn't have the drink? That's what's going to make him happy. Go ahead and do it. I don't care that he's drunk. Why I should judge him? Why am I judging him? In other words, we find that we live in a world where everyone is judgmental. Everyone is looking to somebody else. This one has more. And in the United States, there's always someone who has more. I don't care who you are. There's always. So you can never have it all. But the point is that if you show acts of kindness, acts of mercy, these are things that stay with you. This remains with you. My father used to have a saying, you have, you give, you are. You don't have, you don't give, you are not. I don't know if you can understand that.
Yeah, sure.
So if you give, you're somebody. And you're somebody to the community if you give. If you don't give, you're nobody. And the point is you don't have to give money. You can give time, you can give effort, you can help, and you can be kind. I mean, I've walked out of places where the guy in front of me just walked right out and the door closed in my face. I was in Manhattan on 5th Avenue, pouring rain. I had an umbrella, I'm walking. And there's this woman in I would say a nightgown. And she's practically naked in the street, and she's sitting on the corner in the rain. In the rain. Nobody stopped. Everybody walking past her. 5th Avenue. I mean, I stopped. I gave her my umbrella. I had a hat on. I gave her my umbrella. I said, is there anything I can do for you? Do you want a coat? She says, can you get me a coffee? Absolutely. I said, you know where I can get a coffee? She says, sure. Up the block. At the end of the block, there's a coffee shop. You can get me a coffee there. I said, you sure? She said, yeah. How about something to eat? No. So I go to this coffee shop, and I say, I'm looking for a large coffee. He says to me, oh, don't tell me you're going to bring it to the girl on the corner. I said, yeah, I am. He says to me, okay. He says, I'm going to throw in a cinnamon muffin, because that's what she likes. Because other guys have seen her and stopped. So I brought her the coffee with the muffin, and then she says, take your umbrella. I said, no, you keep the umbrella. I said, I should give you my coat, but I can't. So she said to me, no, you don't have to give me a coat. I'll be fine. But she was soaking wet. I mean, but nobody stopped. You would think that someone would have stopped to help her. I mean, I wanted to call the cops. As a matter of fact, I think I did call the cops. I did call. No, I'm sorry, I did. I called 911, and I told her there's a woman on this corner here. She's destitute, and she's sitting in the rain, and she's practically naked. You should come and help her. And they said, okay, should I wait? She said, no, you don't have to wait. We'll find her. after I gave her the coffee.
Right.
I don't think she wanted help, but I don't care. But that's the point. Another time I was passing a Central Park. Central Park has pavilions. Have you've been to New York? No?
Yeah,
Central
yeah.
Park has little pavilions. So there was a pavilion, and again, it was winter, dead of winter, snow, and I was walking through the park, and I hear someone screaming. So I go into the pavilion, I see this woman running around, tearing her hair out. I mean, so I call the cops, right? And the cops say, I call up 911. I said, look, there's a woman here. I think she's pulling her hair out. I think she needs psychiatric help. I think you need to send somebody. She says, where are you? She says, okay. I said, what do you want me to do? She says, can you wait around till the police get there so you can show them where it is? I said, sure. I said, use the 59th Street entrance. So they came, the cops came, and I said, she's in there. And I stuck around to see what would happen. Nice boys, young cops, and I walked in, and they were talking to her. I said, what's up? He says, everything is fine. We're going to take her over to Bellevue. We're going to get us sorted out. We're going to, get her some, new fresh clothes and get her something to eat. I said, she probably is off her medication. Now, what did it took an hour or 2 hours away from me, but why not?
Right.
But it wasn't the only one walking through that park. You think to yourself, the next guy will do it, but the next guy doesn't do it. That woman in the street, nobody stopped. Everybody was too busy, all in their fine clothing, to stop to help this woman, practically naked in the street. She was destitute. She wasn't that she was a whore, or she was just a homeless person who got stuck in the street. It's stuck in the rain. I think her legs gave out.
Yeah, well, and I tell you, I think that is probably this Veterans Day, Jerry.
Be kind to your vet. Be kind to anybody that you pass by. You don't know who he is. My mother had. I'm gonna just one thing I want to add. My mother had a philosophy, which I think is old school, but I love it when I think about it. She would never pass a woman with her hand out without giving them not that my parents were wealthy people. They were not. They were working class people. But if she passed in, and when I wanted to go to a movie, she didn't have 25 cents to give me to go to a movie. But if she would pass a beggar in the street, she would give him a quarter. And I said to him, but Ma, I said, why did you give that woman once we were walking together, I must have been maybe 10 or 11, and we were coming from shopping. I was carrying the parcels for her, and she stops, and there's a woman begging in the street, and she gives her $1. Now, for my mother to give $1, you'd have to be Jesus. I mean, I said, Mom, why did you give that person $1? I don't understand. I asked you for a quarter to go to a movie, you don't have it. She says, listen to me. The Messiah will come. And he's going to come and he's going to test us. Let's say that was the Messiah. And they came to test us. And I passed by and I didn't give him $1. I denied all of humanity for the Savior.
Yeah. It's a good test.
No. What I'm saying is, yeah. So here is the test. Not that he comes and performs miracles. He comes as a beggar, holds out his hand. You pass him by. You don't put in a dime or a quarter or a sandwich or a drink. He'll leave and he may never come back. He may come back for another 1,000 years. So that my mother's philosophy was she never passed someone in the street holding out a hand, asking for money without giving them something. My mother was a religious woman, but she wasn't Christian. And these Christian Science, you know who they are? Christian Science? These
right.
Women that go door to door, right? Would come to my mother's house, and I came home from school one day, and they were sitting at the table. The New Testament was open, a big cross was on the table. My mother was serving them coffee and cake. So I said to my mother, I said, after they left, I said, Ma, what are you doing? What do you bring these people in the house for? I said, Pop will kill you. She says, these are nice people. They can believe what they believe. Why should I? Who is your stupid mother to tell them that their God is not the right God? What do I know? She says, I have my God. They have their God. What's wrong with them? It was the bad weather outside. I invited them in for coffee. So what? They were talking about. She called Jesus by a Hebrew name. She wouldn't use the word Jesus. But she, why, who am I to call him? Who am I to say that Jesus is not the Messiah? What do I know? What do I know? That was her philosophy.
Well,
now, that's a philosophy. See, that's a philosophy that should be. Everyone should teach that. I mean, she didn't teach it to me. She lived it, and because of it, I'm a better person for it.
well,
Now, when I think of her, I think of all these little incidents, and she would say, "You're stupid, mother," but she was not so stupid.
that's
She was
true.
not.
And I tell you, Jerry, I think out of your memoir, which I know you once had told me is it was cathartic for you to get it out on paper too.
I suffered 2 breakdowns.
Yeah, and I think just to wrap it up on this Veterans Day, to find what you were just talking about, to find that kind of humanity out of the inhumanity of what was Vietnam and your service. And I hope everybody, ladies and gentlemen, it is Veterans Day. Celebrate it with picking up this incredible book, Vietnam Uncensored, 365 Days in a Nightmare. You can find it, of course, where you get all your great reading material. And VietnamJerry.com, of course, is also Jerry's website. But also, ladies and gentlemen, remember, in honor of Veterans Day, every bit of the proceeds of the book will be going to the Kaufman Fund, a fine organization that for over 3 decades has been helping veterans and their families overcome trauma and poverty, and if they needed some help, the Kaufman Fund's just been a great, outstanding organization, highly recommended. So, and remember, all the proceeds of the book sales for Veterans Day will be going to the Kaufman Fund. Jerry, my friend, fellow veteran, I can't thank you enough for joining us and having our Veterans Day special in honor of your great memoir, Vietnam Uncensored, 365 Days in a Nightmare. All the links will be in the description of the show for you. So please, by all means, go pick it out. Help veterans, help the Kaufman Fund, and hey, help Jerry. He poured his heart and soul into that book.
Thank you very much. I'm humbled by your praise. Thank you so much.
Jerry, my friend, it is so good to see you again, and thank you for joining us, bud.
Take care, buddy.